On September 30th, 2008, Silent Hill fans were unbelievably excited to see their favorite series launch on the 7th generation of consoles. Resident Evil had yet to release on this console generation, and the first Dead Space game was still a few weeks away. Even though this new Silent Hill game wouldn't be developed by Team Silent, it would certainly be an evolution for the series with the upgrade in hardware. This new Silent Hill game would be developed by Double Helix Games and published by Konami. The only area of concern here was that the development team behind this hotly anticipated game had never released anything at all prior. But hey, this is a clean slate. Konami trusted them, so the series had to be in safe hands. I can't stress enough how exciting of a time this was. This new game, Silent Hill Homecoming, would have the honor of releasing before its competition and showing every other developer how it's done. Or so fans thought. Upon release, the mixed to negative reviews didn't take too long to appear. Just about any gameplay or story aspect was criticized by at least one reviewer. Time wasn't too kind to this game either. You can argue that Silent Hill Downpour has somewhat of an improved perception now versus when it released, but Homecoming? It seems like fans still see this game in the same light. After getting into this series this past summer, I asked myself this. Is Silent Hill Homecoming really that bad? Or are people just blinded by nostalgia into thinking that this game is inferior? To answer this question, I purchased this game and played it to completion. Here are my findings. Where to start? We're going to talk about both the story and the gameplay today, but I'd like to tackle the gameplay first since there's a good bit to unpack here. To start, the original 4 Silent Hill games never had the most in-depth combat ever, but enemy encounters were always tense and the resource management on display kept things fun and interesting. Okay, that's our baseline here. We need tense enemy encounters and resource management. Let's boot it up and see what we can get. When you start this game up, the tutorial tasks you with making your way through this creepy hospital while solving puzzles and searching for your brother. Once you stumble into this bathroom, you get your first enemy encounter. This is what the player must conquer. So, there's a couple problems here. First off, this enemy, the Bubblehead Nurse, is a twisted manifestation of James Sunderland's sexual frustration. This has nothing to do with our new hero, Alex Shepard. It's just plain absurd seeing these nurses appear throughout the entirety of this game, since, plot-wise, they don't belong here. Do not even get me started on the Pyramid Head cameos. Actually, you know what? I will get started on the Pyramid Head cameos. I'd almost respect it if this monster was used in a boss fight, even though that would be like Leon Kennedy fighting Patrick Starr. Using this monstrous manifestation of, once again, James Sunderland's trauma and sins as just a cool looking prop is beyond out of touch. Alright, rant over. Now for the elephant in the room. Yeah, you can just stun lock every nurse in this area with your knife. They even align in a single file for you to take out easier. I will say this, the Bubblehead Nurses cannot be stun locked anytime you see them after this level. That kind of brings up a bigger issue though. This is the player's introduction to the game. Imagine being a Silent Hill fan in 2008, waiting all year for this game, buying it at GameStop, putting it in your Xbox, and getting that encounter. I can't even imagine how I'd react. Okay, let's dissect the combat a little more. On paper, the combat here is a natural evolution to classic Silent Hill. You lock onto enemies to attack with a melee weapon, or aim with a firearm in an over-the-shoulder view to strike from afar. This over-the-shoulder aiming is a very welcome change from the PS2 entries since it makes the player stress a lot more about their aim, adding a whole new layer of depth to the gunplay. Despite this change, there's a huge emphasis on melee combat, and there were a lot of changes made to it. To start, you now have light attacks and heavy attacks to use. Mixing up these attacks allows you to string together different combos too. You can even hold down the heavy attack button to charge up your swing for more damage. Even though this is a sizable change, I never really used combos too often, and charging up heavy attacks only proved useful in limited situations. I don't hate that these attacks are in the game, even if combos may be a little too highbrow for horror games. My issue is that the enemies don't take very good advantage of these attacks. You never think to yourself, ooh, this specific combo would help me so much here. Let's see if I can pull it off, because enemies retaliate too quick for you to complete the button inputs. The same jankiness found in the classic Silent Hill melee combat is still here, which is fine, but with how quickly enemies can strike back, I rarely had the chance to build a combo with how slow my own strikes are. This also leads me to a significant issue I take with the enemies. They're often a little exploitable. Some enemy types can be stun locked, and the ones that can't have simple attack patterns that allow for simple dodging and punishing. Part of what makes this too easy is the dodging system. The way it works is, you can move the control stick in any direction and press the dodge button to do a dodge roll. You can also press the dodge button without the control stick to duck in place. There's a huge asterisk over that sentence though. If an enemy attacks you, and you press the dodge button at just the right time without moving the control stick, Alex will instead perform a directional dodge in the most advantageous direction to punish your enemy. Once you get good at this, enemies become a lot less engaging. The Silent Hill 2 remake found a good way around this. Even regular enemies in that game had a variety of attacks that would come out at different speeds and different frequencies, making them really difficult to get the hang of. It was also up to you to decide what direction you should dodge in. Actually, some of the bosses in Homecoming did this too. While the boss fights weren't great by any means, and the dodge mechanics still soured it, these encounters were the only time that I could really see the vision in the combat system. These bosses have a bigger variety of attacks, and they have smaller windows to punish them. Honestly, the bosses were kind of fun, and they might be the highlight of the combat system. I'm afraid this isn't saying much though. One thing I have to give this game a ton of credit for is the enemy designs. I think they're really cool, and they look in line with the rest of the series for the most part. As far as the rest of the gameplay goes, it's all quite similar to the PS2 Silent Hills. You explore an open town, this time called Shepherd's Glen, and talk to several bizarre and offbeat characters while avoiding monsters, solving puzzles, and collecting resources. There isn't a puzzle difficulty selector in this game, which, as a puzzle lover, I find quite lame, but the puzzles on display here are engaging enough. The biggest issue I take is that exploring Shepherd's Glen really isn't all that fun. There are some cool collectibles and weapons to find, but with the clunky setup of the combat and some of the persistence of chasing enemies, I often found myself only heading to the objective on the map. Horror games with small open worlds are my favorite thing ever, but this one had me wanting more. One final thing I must credit the game for is the graphics. I know it sounds like a weird thing to praise an old game for, but I really like the aesthetic of its appearance. There's a strong argument to be made that realistic graphics have taken away from the mysteriousness that old horror games could pull off effortlessly. I feel like this game has that same charm visually. The fog in this town looks great, and the textures leave a lot to the imagination. These graphics feel like the natural evolution of PS2 visuals to modern technology. Okay, now we have to discuss the story. I didn't find the story to be terrible in this game, but when you compare it to the rest of the series, it certainly leaves a lot to be desired. There's two types of Silent Hill stories. The stories that revolve around the cult, like in the first, third, and fourth games, and there's the stories that delve into the protagonist's trauma, like the second game in Downpour. Homecoming kinda tries to do both. Let me explain. You play as Alex Shepard, a man that was recently discharged from the military that's making his way back to his hometown. Sounds like an absolutely brilliant concept for a Silent Hill protagonist, right? After a horrible nightmare, he arrives back home in a town called Shepherd's Glen. Immediately, he's taken aback at how barren his hometown appears. Regardless, Alex makes his long anticipated visit back home, except it doesn't go the way he imagined it. Quick interjection. Something that players may notice around the house is that there are multiple family pictures inside the house, but none of them feature Alex. This will be very relevant later. After investigating, Alex finds that the only person home is his despondent mother. She informs our hero that both his father and his brother, Josh, have disappeared. The brave soldier then sets out to find his family around town. This is around the time when strange monsters appear all around the house, and for whatever reason, Alex doesn't seem interested in telling his mother that some of these things lurk inside their own basement. While searching the town, Alex will periodically fall unconscious and get transported to Silent Hill. It's typically during these sections where he learns the truth about what happened back home. During his adventure, Alex discovers that his parents are part of a cult that demands they sacrifice their firstborn child, otherwise monsters would appear and terrorize their town of residents. Our hero Alex was the first child born into the Shepherd family, meaning that he was born for nothing more than to be a living sacrifice. This is why Josh got the favoritism treatment from his family. He was the only child that his parents had any intention of bonding with and raising. I mentioned before that Josh went missing, and the whole point of the game was that Alex wanted to find his brother. It gets revealed at the very end that Alex inadvertently killed his own brother while they were on a boat together. For some reason, this threw off the whole ritual, and then the fog and the evil creatures appeared in Shepherd's Glen. What I don't understand is, with Alex killing Josh, does that mean that his parents still couldn't sacrifice him? Also, this cutscene with Alex on the boat with his brother is so bizarre. He acts so wildly out of character here. I don't think it was ever implied that he was an awful brother or that he abused Josh before. Did he just snap here? Finally, after this cutscene, it's revealed that Alex was never actually a soldier. All that time spent away from his home wasn't because Alex was deployed. He was actually in the psych ward. It feels like all the potential for the military veteran protagonist went to waste as a result of this revelation. So, yeah, there's some good and some bad here. While the family dynamic is really interesting, the rest of the plot is at best forgettable and at worst confusing. Oh yeah, we have to talk about the endings too. These endings are dependent on whether or not you mercy kill your mom, forgive your dad, and save Officer Wheeler. The good ending has Alex leave Shepherd's Glen. The hospital ending, which is what I got, has him wake up in a mental hospital for torture. The drowning ending sees Alex's father drown him to complete the ritual. Finally, we have the two worst endings, one of which is the UFO ending. Now, the UFO ending is a Silent Hill tradition. Most games feature a joke ending in which the real evil turns out to be aliens all along. Ah! On its own, this ending is fine, but the problem is, you can very reasonably get this ending on your first playthrough. Yes, you can make some totally understandable decisions and get quote-unquote rewarded with a joke ending on your first attempt. Imagine trying to get into this series, starting with this game, and seeing this ending. I'd probably become Silent Hill's #1 hater. The second terrible ending sees Alex literally get turned into Pyramid Head. You heard that correctly. I don't think I need to explain how tone deaf that is for a second time.
Make sure my son never loved me. I had to make sure that he would never feel joy or compassion, all the things that make life worth living. You must understand, I was only trying to make things easier for him and for me. And for this selfishness, I ask forgiveness.
If you truly want forgiveness, then you already have it.
So, to answer our question, is Silent Hill Homecoming really that bad? Yeah, I'm afraid it is. The gameplay really lacks a lot to keep players engaged. Although the attempts to broaden the combat system is admirable, most of the additions add very little to the player experience, and exploring the town has never felt more mundane. It's unfortunate that the story couldn't pick up the slack either. Overall, it feels like a forgettable experience in spite of what little there is to actually enjoy. It shouldn't be this bad, but sadly it is. The bad just outweighs the good here. It's ultimately an experience worth skipping. There was one more mainline Silent Hill game that released during this generation that received similar scrutiny from fans. Huh. I wonder if that one's worth looking into as well.